American Timelines is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network, powered by Ortho Carolina. Find out more at queencitypodcastnetwork.com.
So now I'm obsessed with time. Come on, tell me about the time. Had it all in my hand tonight. Had the time of my life. When the words all come down like blues on Tuesdays come down. Throw it all away.
Welcome to another episode of
American Timelines.
That's unnecessary.
That's
Joe and I'm Amy.
Monkey.
All right, are you going to act like this the whole
Bamba.
podcast?
Sorry.
All right.
Yes. Oh, hey.
No, please don't.
No, we gotta apologize first. Welcome to American Timelines. My name's Joe.
Yes.
I know you missed the smooth sound of my voice last week,
That's right.
and Amy's voice, which is like butter.
My screech.
Her screech, but we were on vacation. I was on vacation. We were on vacation. I was out of
I
town.
was not
You worked. Amy is a teacher, so she is working hard,
like crazy.
harder than she's ever worked. And I took the kids to a lake, a remote destination, to get away from everything and everybody. And there was no internet or
Right.
webinet. So, yeah, and then this one's going to be late this week just because then you get back and swing of things.
Let's
try to
just say
find
just
time.
because COVID. That'll be our excuse for everything.
Okay.
Just because COVID.
Our new schedule is out of the ordinary because of COVID. There is a pandemic, so cut us some frickin' slack.
That's it. That's all you got to say.
I really thought COVID would make it, we would do this 2 times a week instead of
I know. Even
more
less.
often, not less. But it's harder.
Yes, it is.
I guess when you've lost all hope for living, it's hard to
it's hard
keep
to
going.
muster up the courage.
It's hard to think
do
anybody cares
anything.
about this when everyone's dying and
Well, it's
there's
a little bit of hyperbole. but-
racism in the streets and
Right. There always was racism in the streets.
Yeah, but
though.
it's like there's more of it.
No,
Like black people are murdered for being alive.
no more of it. Just
Yeah,
like,
it's
being-
just focus. We're focusing
being
on
on
it. But that's
video.
good. I mean, there's some good things that are
That's
coming
true.
out of that. But
Okay.
Anyway, well, let's jump in. We left off at the end of June,
Okay.
and we got a lot to cover. So let's just not start off with a whole bunch of bullshit
That sounds good to me.
and wasting all this time just explaining things and saying where we were and what was happening
Okay.
because we got so much to cover. So let's not just keep wasting time
All
by
right.
talking about wasting time.
All right. Will
See,
you
the
please
less we
start-
talk about wasting time
You're so
and get right
irritating.
into it, the quicker
You're so
we'll be
irritating.
able to go. Okay, July. I love you. I'm in love with you. July 1st, 1969 was a Tuesday.
Okay.
I don't know if you know this, but according to thecorrespondent.com, President Richard Nixon had proposed a form of basic income or negative,
like universal basic income?
or negative income tax for poor families in the U.S.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, he proposed it. Nixon did. The worst guy
Wow.
ever. But it was promptly defeated in the Senate. It passed the House, but actually Democrats in the Senate killed it because they didn't think it went far enough. Republicans hated the idea at
He's
all.
probably going to give him 5 cents a
Yeah,
month or
probably.
something.
Many detractors mentioned the Speenham land system, which was the Berkshire Bread Act. It was a form of outdoor relief intended to mitigate rural poverty in England and Wales at the end of the 18th century. And during the 19th century, the law was an amendment to the Elizabethan Poor Law. According to Rutger Brenman's article on thecorrespondent.com, the bizarre tale of President Nixon and his basic income bill, it actually worked well, and the negativity surrounding it came from the rich.
Of course, it always does.
Yeah. But I spent a lot of time researching that Speenham land system and just like I can't help to think like Nixon did that. Like
It's possible.
if they would have just taken it, like where would we be today
Right.
if we had universal income back then?
Yeah.
Starting that people get used to it. Oh, it's just crazy where we're at. And then
They would never give poor people enough to have generational wealth, though. That's the whole problem.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
true.
black people and poor people are not allowed to have generational wealth in this country, and that's what keeps them from advancing.
Yeah, I agree. That's still a problem, but there wouldn't be as much. Like people need to live. Like people would be
Right.
able to live.
That's true.
They'd have a livable wage. No, like you could work at McDonald's and still survive and
Yeah.
not just die.
Right.
Wednesday, July 2nd, 1969, the newest and largest casino and resort in Vegas, the International Hotel, opened to guests. Renowned singer Barbra Streisand performed the first concert date to inaugurate the 1,500 room hotel, 1,510 rooms. At the time, the tallest building, 30 stories in Nevada.
All right.
And that same day, Iron Mike DiBiase died, Ted DiBiase's dad. And then Thursday, July 3rd, 1969.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with English guitarist Brian Jones
No,
of the Rolling Stones?
I do not. I mean, I know the Rolling Stones, but I don't know the
I'll admit,
guitarist.
I also wasn't aware
Yeah.
that there was a pretty good guitarist that died at age 27.
Really?
Magical 27.
Yeah.
He was found dead in a swimming pool on this day at Hartfield, East Sussex, a month after quitting the band to perform in his own music. Jones was at his home, Cotsford Farm, a 16th century estate where English author A.A. Milne
Mm-hmm.
had written his Winnie the Poop stories.
Yes.
Pooh. Sorry, not poop.
Mm-hmm.
Jones's death at age 27 followed in succession by the deaths of 3 other 27-year-old rock musicians. Who are
Jimi
they?
Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Jim Morrison.
And Brian Jones. J.
Oh,
Jones, Jimmy, Janis, and Jim.
wow. That's
27.
spooky.
It's a weird thing. They died in the 2-year period that would follow. It would give rise to the notion of the 27 Club. So at around midnight on the night of the 2nd to the 3rd of July, he was discovered motionless at the bottom of his pool.
Mm-hmm.
His Swedish girlfriend, Anna Wolin, was convinced he was alive when he was taken out of the pool, insisting he still had a pulse. However, by the time the doctors arrived, it was too late, and he was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital.
Mm.
The coroner's report stated it was death by misadventure and noted his liver and heart were heavily enlarged by past drug and alcohol abuse.
Mm-hmm. Can you
and then
imagine what Keith Richards' like liver and lungs looks like right now?
That's what I keep thinking about. If this guy died,
right.
then Keith Richards was he probably snorted his ashes
Yeah, he
after
probably
he was
did.
dead. The Rolling Stones performed at a free concert in Hyde Park on July 5th, 2 days after his death. The band decided to dedicate the concert, which had been scheduled weeks earlier, as an opportunity to present their new guitarist, because he had quit,
Oh.
Mick Taylor, to Jones. So they dedicated it to him. And before the Stones set, Jagger read excerpts from Adonis, a poem by Percy Bysshe
Bishy.
Shelley, about the death of his friend John Keats.
Maybe it's Bishy. Maybe it's Bish. I
And
don't know.
at that, after he read it, stagehands released hundreds of white butterflies as part of the tribute.
Isn't that nice?
Jones was reportedly buried 10 feet deep to
Why?
prevent exhumation by trophy hunters. Exhumation.
I thought it was because his boner was so big.
Well, and his dick might have been so big
Yeah.
it needed to. Yeah.
Yeah, extra feet.
They had extra feet. He just. Oh yeah. Do you get a boner? I mean, full rigor.
I think so.
Full rigor.
think
I got
you
a
do.
full rigor in my pants.
All right.
But here's the other thing. There were rumors
Mm-hmm.
that he was murdered.
Really?
There's a murder theory. Theories around his death soonly developed, with associates of the Stones claiming to have information that he was murdered. According to rock biographer Philip Norman, the murder theory would bubble back to the surface every 5 years or so. In 1993, it was reported that Jones was murdered by Frank Thorogood, who was doing construction work on the property. He was the last person to see Jones alive. Thorogood allegedly confessed the murder to the Rolling Stones driver, Tom Keelock, who later denied this. The Thorogood theory was dramatized in the 2000 movie Stoned. Thorogood is alleged to have killed Jones in a fight over money.
I don't buy it.
Yeah, he had been paid a certain amount of work for work on the farm, and he wanted more money.
Yeah.
And it was covered up by senior police officers when they discovered how badly the investigation was done. And they botched it, so then they covered it up. But, yeah, I don't know if that holds weight.
Doesn't sound right to me.
Well, on that same day, the Soviet Union's race to land a man on the moon, already far behind the American program, ended with the explosion after launch of its N-1 rocket, the Soviet counterpart to the American Saturn V. Although the N-1 was capable of carrying the mass of a large payload, an orbiting vehicle, a lunar lander, and at least one cosmonaut out of Earth orbit, the Soviets had yet to accomplish what the U.S. had done with Apollo 9 in December, putting men into orbit around the moon. So I didn't realize how much that space race really came down to the last second, and we'll get into that later when we get to the moon landing, which is this month. But that brings us to, we'll get into the moon landing and that stuff at the end of at the second half of the episode. Let's jump right into your murder.
Yes.
July 4th, 1969.
Yes.
It's Independence Day, and you have
Well, I am going to
murder.
cover the Zodiac Killer.
So he, let me guess, he was called the Zodiac Killer because he killed people and left their birthstones on their penises.
No. So it's the pseudonym of an unidentified American serial killer who operated in Northern California from at least the late 1960s to the early 1970s.
Wait, they haven't caught this guy?
Nope.
Oh.
It's a mystery.
We don't know who the Zodiac Killer is?
Nope.
Oh, that's why I never hear
And the
Zodiac
killer
originated
he originated his name in a series of taunting letters and cards sent to the local Bay Area press.
Oh, so he calls himself
Yes.
the Zodiac Killer.
And the letters included 4 cryptograms or ciphers, where there's symbols and the symbol, and you have to crack the
figure
code.
out what the code is.
Yes,
See,
only one of the 4 has ever been solved, though.
Really? And you're going to tell us about that one that was solved, I guess?
Yes.
When I think of cipher, I think of a hip-hop dance circle.
You're wrong. All right. The first murders widely attributed to the Zodiac Killer were the shootings of high school students Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday on December 20th, 1968.
That's the same day that Barbara Jane Mackle was rescued alive after 83 hours inside a ventilated box that had been buried in a shallow ditch. Remember we talked about that?
Yes.
Same day as that.
That's right. So this was on Lake Herman Road, just inside Benicia city limits.
Benicia City?
Mm-hmm. That's what it says. The couple were on their first date and planned to attend a Christmas concert at Hogan High School about 3 blocks from Jensen's home.
Oh, yeah. Hot date at high school.
So instead, though, they visited a friend, and then they stopped at a local restaurant, and then they drove out on Lake Herman Road.
Okay. Probably had some mashed potatoes and gravy. Probably shared the gravy.
Might be. At about 10:15 p.m., Faraday parked on a lover's lane.
Man,
Shortly
Lover's
after
Lane. What
11
happened to
p.m., their bodies were found by Stella Borges, who lived nearby.
She's probably a grizzled old battle axe.
The Solano County Sheriff's Department investigated the crime, but no leads developed. So using available forensic data, the police postulated that another car had pulled into the turnout just before 11 and parked beside the couple.
Yeah.
Then the killer...
Probably was watching them make out and stuff.
Well, the killer got out of his car and walked toward their car and was probably ordering the couple to get out of the car.
Yeah.
And so Jensen appears to have exited the car first. Then when when Faraday was halfway out of the car, the killer shot him in the head.
Oh.
So then Jensen takes off running.
Yeah.
And
as you would.
shoots her, and he shoots her 5 times in the back as she flees away. Her body was found 28 feet from the car, and then the killer drove away.
He just took off after he killed him. So that was like his first foray into murder, probably.
Yep. So then, just before midnight on July 4th, 1969, which is what we're
This is
talking
where
about
we're
right
at,
now.
the day we're at right now, when a sudden storm, same day that a sudden storm killed 42 people in Ohio and Michigan, many of them outside to celebrate Independence Day, because the National Weather Service received the first storm warnings at 7:33 in the evening and told the emergency broadcast system to stand by for an alert to be sent, but never gave the go-ahead for a warning to be sent to people in and around Cleveland. So several people at a event in Lakewood, Ohio were killed when a tornado swept through the city park.
Wow. Yes.
Gotta warn people, man. That same day.
Darlene Farron and Michael McGew drove into the Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo, which is 4 miles from the Lake Herman Road murder site.
Okay.
And they parked.
4 miles only?
Yeah.
Okay.
While the couple sat in Farron's car, a second car drove into the lot and parked alongside them, but then it almost immediately drove away. Then it returned about 10 minutes later, and it parked behind them. The driver of the second car then got out of the vehicle, approached the passenger side door of Farron's car, carrying a flashlight and a 9mm Luger. The killer directed the flashlight into McGew and Farron's eyes and then shot them, firing 5 times.
Oh, man.
Both victims were hit, and several bullets had passed through McGew and into Farron.
Oh,
The killer walked away from the car, but upon hearing McGew's moaning, returned and shot each victim twice more before driving away.
So how do they know all that happened?
Well,
if nobody survived.
on the next day, right, at 12:40 a.m.,
Yeah.
a man phoned the Vallejo Police Department to report and claim responsibility for the attack.
Oh, so he explained what he did and everything.
The caller also took credit for the murders of Jensen and Faraday, which was 6.5 months earlier.
Yeah.
Police traced the call to a phone booth at a gas station at Springs Road and Tulum, located about 0.3 of a mile from Farron's home and only a few blocks from the Vallejo Police Department.
Okay.
Farron was pronounced dead at the hospital. McGew survived, despite being shot in the face, neck, and chest.
What?
McGew described his attacker as 26 to 30 years old, 195 to 200 pounds, or possibly even more, 5'8", white male with short, light brown, curly hair.
Now, if you were just shot in the face a bunch of times and they asked you,
I
how
know.
much did that guy weigh?
Yeah.
I'd be like, I have no.
know.
I mean, a lot of people can't tell that I weigh over 375 pounds.
That's right. It's true.
Because
Until
I
they
carry
see that
it.
stick you wash yourself with, the rag on the stick.
Hey, I thought of something though here. So, the same day that person was shot in the face and his girlfriend died, was
Yes.
murdered in
Yes.
front of him. Think of the trauma. What would you rather have happen to you? Like get killed in a tornado,
Yes.
or get shot in the face and your girlfriend gets killed?
Probably in the tornado,
And then you have
I
to
would think.
guess this guy's weight.
Yeah,
You a tornado? You'd rather just fly
Yeah.
up in a tornado?
I think. I don't know. That's awful, too. I don't know. Why are you asking me? All right.
I think I'd rather the tornado. I don't like pain.
I know.
That's my thing.
So then, on August 1st,
1969?
yes.
Oh, the same day that NASA Administrator Thomas O. Paine told a crowd that a manned mission to both Mars and Venus should be feasible by the 1980s. That same day?
Venus.
Yeah.
All right. 3 letters prepared by the
Penis.
killer were received at the Vallejo Times-Herald, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the San Francisco Examiner.
Ooh, he's going to the press.
And these were nearly identical letters. And a psychiatrist later has described them as being written by someone you would expect to be brooding and isolated.
Oh, so like one of my college roommates,
Yes.
Brian Richards,
Ye-
brooding,
That's right.
isolated.
They took credit for the shootings at Lake Herman Road and Blue Rock Springs. In each letter also included 1/3 of a 408-symbol cryptogram, which the killer claimed contained his identity.
Ooh.
The killer demanded they be printed in each paper's front page, or he would, quote, cruise around all weekend killing lone people in the night, then move on to kill again until I end up with a dozen people over the weekend.
Wow, so he's warning everybody.
Yeah.
So everybody's spooked.
The Chronicle published its third of the cryptogram the next day.
Oh, so wait, each one had a different
Yeah.
cryptogram.
Cryptogram. That's right.
Sorry.
An article printed alongside the code quoted Vallejo Police Chief Jack E. Stiltz as saying, "We're not satisfied that the letter was written by the murderer," and requested the writer send a second letter with more facts to prove his identity. So they want more communication. See?
Okay. Jackie.
So then on August 7th,
1969.
yes,
All but 10 of the residents of the small town of Greenfield, Iowa, population 2,243, pledged to give up or to never start smoking cigarettes, as well as cigars and pipes, in advance of the shooting of a film produced and directed by Norman Lear, starring Dick Van Dyke and Bob Newhart. The movie Cold Turkey, about the fictitious town of Eagle Rock, Iowa, quitting tobacco cold turkey, wouldn't be released until 1971. That same day?
Yep. Another letter was received at the San Francisco Examiner
Okay.
with the salutation, "Dear editor, this is the Zodiac speaking."
This is the Zodiac.
This was the
speaking.
first time the killer had used this name for identification.
Oh.
The letter was a response to Chief Stilt's request for more details. In it, the Zodiac included details about the murders which had not been released to the public, as well as a message to the police that when they cracked his code, they will have me.
Wow.
So then the next day, Donald and Betty Harden of Salinas, California, cracked the 408-symbol cryptogram.
Okay.
It contained a misspelled message in which the killer seemed to reference the most dangerous game. He also said he was collecting slaves for the afterlife.
Oh.
No name appears in the decoded text, and the killer said he would not give away his identity because it would slow down or stop his slave collection.
That is fucked
Yes,
up.
yes. Then, on September 27th,
1969.
yes,
The same day that the centennial of the first American college football game was celebrated at Princeton University, which had defeated Rutgers University by a score of 8-0 on November 6th, 1869. Visited Rutgers again 100 years later after the first college
Isn't that
football
nice?
game.
Isn't that nice? Yes.
That same day?
Pacific Union College students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were picnicking at Lake Berryessa on a small island.
You know what? Those two always were picnicking.
That's
that was
what
the
they were
annoying
doing.
thing about them.
A white man, about 5 foot 11 inches, weighing more than 170 pounds, with combed, greasy brown hair, approached them, wearing a black executioner's type hood with clip-on sunglasses over the eye holes and a bib-like device on his chest that had a white 3x3-inch cross circle, like a crosshair, and then a circle around it, but it was white.
That's weird. That guy's fucked up.
Got to look a little odd in this getup.
Well, how do you know he's got brown, greasy hair if he's wearing a hood?
I don't know. He approached them with a gun. The hooded man claimed to be an escaped convict from a jail where he had killed a guard and stolen a car, explaining he now needed their car and money to go to Mexico, as the vehicle he had been driving was too hot.
Ah, plausible.
He brought with him some plastic clothesline and told Shepard to tie up her boyfriend. Then he tied her up.
Okay.
They thought they were being robbed until the man drew a knife and stabbed them both repeatedly.
Oh.
He then walked over to the car and wrote the Zodiac symbol, which is that crosshair, that circle with the cross in it.
That whole
That's the
thing
Zodiac
is a symbol. Okay.
And the date, and then he wrote by knife underneath the date.
Huh.
So, like, he was saying, I murdered somebody. Then at 7:40 p.m., the killer called the Napa County Sheriff's Office from a payphone to report this latest crime.
Wow.
The caller first stated to the operator that he wished to report a double murder, before stating he had been the perpetrator of the crime. The phone was found still off the hook minutes later at a Napa car wash on Main Street in Napa by a reporter only a few blocks from the sheriff's office, yet 27 miles from the crime scene.
Just if they had some Napa know-how, they could figure out this crime.
Too bad they don't have any cameras.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's like nowadays, none of this could happen.
Detectives were
Three's Company couldn't happen, Seinfeld couldn't happen, and this couldn't happen.
Detectives were able to lift a still wet palm print from the telephone, but were never able to match it to any suspect.
Wait, they had a palm print?
From the phone.
And they just don't know. Yeah, because I guess.
After hearing their screams for help, a man and his son, after hearing that couple's screams for help, a man and his son, who were fishing in a nearby cove, discovered the victims and summoned help by contacting park rangers. Cecilia Shepard was conscious when police arrived and gave him a detailed description of the attacker. She lapsed into a coma on the way to the hospital and never regained consciousness. She died 2 days later, but Hartnell survived to recount his story to the press.
Oh,
that's how
man,
they know what happened.
That guy's got some PTSD, too.
Yes.
I can't imagine all these people saw this dude and they can't catch him. Mm-hmm. They never found him? What?
So then...
Maybe we'll solve it. Remember that Patton Oswalt's wife solved the Golden State Killer guy? Let's solve this.
Maybe.
Do it.
That goes into... Hold on.
Do it, nerd.
So then 2 weeks later, on October 11th...
Oh, October 11th, 1969, the same night that on the honeymooners go to Mexico on the honeymooners?
Yes. A white male passenger entered the cab driven by Paul Stein at an intersection in San Francisco, and he asked to be taken to Washington and Maple Streets in Presidio Heights.
Okay.
For reasons unknown, Stein drove 1 block past Maple to Cherry Street, and then the passenger shot Stein once in the head with a 9mm.
Because he went to the wrong street?
Yeah.
Or just because he was a murderer?
I guess he went to the wrong street. Took Stein's wallet and car keys and tore away a section of Stein's blood-stained shirt tail.
Wow.
The passenger was observed by 3 teenagers across the street. They watched the whole thing.
They saw the whole thing happen.
And at 9:55 p.m. So they call the police while the crime is in progress. The teenagers
Keep in mind,
911
didn't exist yet, right?
They watch him wipe the cab down, and then they watch him walk away towards Presidio, 1 block to the north. 2 blocks from the crime scene, patrol officer Don Falk and Eric Zelms were responding to this call.
Falk and Zelms?
Yep. They see a white man walking along the sidewalk east on Jackson Street and stepping onto a stairway leading up to the front yard of one of the homes on the north side of the street.
Yeah.
But the police radio dispatcher had initially alerted officers to be on the lookout for a black suspect.
So racism.
They drove past him, didn't stop.
Racism ruined the catching of the killer of the Zodiac.
They did search later, but no suspects were found, and that was the last officially confirmed kill by the Zodiac killer.
You know, those of you who are listening were trying to hang on to, well, racism's still good. You know what? It's not good. It never was good, and it
causes everything.
It actually even
causes all the
stops
problems.
people from catching murderers. So
It causes all the problems.
Yeah, so all of you racists, stop listening.
So the Stein murder was initially thought to just be a routine cabbie killing, a robbery that had escalated. But quickly on October 13th...
Wait, a routine cabbie killing? That's a thing?
That's like he was getting robbed and it went wrong and somehow got murdered.
I guess
so then the San Francisco Chronicle received a new letter from the Zodiac, and it had that piece of bloody shirt that he had torn off of Stein. You know, he tore that shirt tail.
Yeah.
That was in the letter.
Oh, wow.
And so then he took credit for the killing so that they knew that was real.
Ugh.
The 3 teen witnesses worked with police artists to prepare a composite sketch of the killer. A few days later, this police artist returned working with the witness to prepare a second composite sketch.
You know, I've never seen a composite sketch that even looks anything at all like the killer.
The only one that was really good was the mold, and it was a 3D plaster cast of John List, and it was a mold, but they knew what he looked like. They were searching for him, and they had to age progress him, so they...
I don't understand how they can figure that out.
They did a plaster casting of what he would look like at his age of 60 or whatever it was, because he had been on the run for like 30 years, and they caught him because it looked so much like him.
Just like him because they could figure out. Yep. I don't get how that works. I'm not smart enough.
So the letter also included a threat about killing school children on a school bus.
That sucks.
To do this, the Zodiac wrote, just shoot out the front tire and then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out. On November 8th...
Oh, the same day that the honeymooners test Alice's Uncle Howard's girlfriend by shooting marbles up her
No, that's not what happened. The Zodiac mailed a card with another cryptogram that had 340 characters, and this one has never been decoded. Then, the next day... The Zodiac mailed a 7-page letter stating that the 2 policemen stopped and actually spoke with him 3 minutes after he shot Stein.
Really?
That those guys that saw him?
Yeah.
In his letter, he says, they actually stopped and talked to me. 3 minutes after I did it.
After they saw him do all that.
And excerpts from that letter were published in the newspaper that included that claim, and the police there was an investigation and stuff like that. On the night of March 22nd, 1970.
Oh, the same night that the United States first used the Blue 82 bomb in combat, dropping the most powerful conventional weapon up to that time on the North Vietnamese army?
Yes.
That same day?
Kathleen Johns was driving from San Bernardino to Petaluma to visit her mom.
No problem there. That's perfectly fine.
She was 7 months pregnant and had her 10-month-old daughter beside her.
Oh, no. That's got to be rough. And she probably wasn't even in a car seat. She probably one of those weird metal contraptions.
Or probably just bouncing around.
Probably just bouncing around.
While heading west on Highway 132 near Modesto, a car behind her began honking its horn and flashing its headlights at her.
Uh-oh.
She pulled off and stopped, and the man in the car parked behind her, got out, went up to her car and said that he saw that her right rear wheel was wobbling and said he would tighten the lug nuts for her.
Oh, what a ploy.
So then, after finishing, he drove off, yet when she pulls out to re-enter the highway, the wheel completely falls off.
Yep.
And so then he comes back around and he says he'll give him a ride. So they get in his car and they go and they get past one gas station. And they go past another gas station.
And she's starting to realize.
And he's not stopping. And so...
she's got a baby kid with her, too?
Yep. For about 90 minutes, he's driving back and forth around the back roads. And she asks him why he's not stopping, and he just would change the subject. So when he finally stopped in an intersection...
Imagine what that riveting conversation was like.
Yeah. When he finally stopped at an intersection, she jumps out of with her daughter.
Oh, my gosh.
And runs into a field and, hides.
Ugh.
And the driver searched for her. He had a flashlight, and he was searching for her, and he was yelling that he would not hurt her, but eventually he gave up and left. Wow. So, unable to find her, he got back in the car and drove off.
So she got away from the Zodiac killer?
She hitched a ride to the police station.
Thank goodness. I was really worried that you were going to tell me that. Murder.
Well, then when she was at the police station giving her statement, she sees the composite sketch of Stein's killer.
What?
And says, that's him.
That's it. Just saw the dude.
That's him.
And they still didn't catch him.
Right. So Zodiac continued to communicate with authorities for the remainder of 1970 through letters and greeting cards. Sometimes he would send cards.
That's weird.
Weirdo. He sent a greeting card postmarked April 28th, 1970.
Oh, the same day that Ed Begley Sr. died?
Yep. To the Chronicle, and he wrote, "I hope you enjoy yourselves when I have my blast." And then it had his cross circle signature.
Oh, I can't believe he sent that while Ed Begley, who was at a party of his publicist when he collapsed and he couldn't be revived.
Yeah, I know.
That's crazy.
On the back of that card, he threatened to use the bus bomb soon unless the newspaper published full details of what he wrote. And he also wanted to start seeing people wear some nice Zodiac buttons.
Jeez, what a nut.
So then...
And he's not concerned that those other 3 cryptograms haven't been solved? Like, he doesn't mention that again?
Then in a letter postmarked June 26th, 1970...
Oh, the same day that Nick Offerman was born in Joliet, Illinois?
Mm-hmm.
That same day?
He stated he was upset he did not see people wearing Zodiac buttons.
What an idiot. Why would... Oh, he thinks people should just...
He
like,
wants
it's like
people
a new
to...
fad.
The last letter he sent said he wanted to start seeing people wearing Zodiac buttons.
So why aren't
and
they?
now he's mad that they are not.
So I've got to kill
So
more
he
people.
wrote, "I shot a man sitting in a parked car with a .38.
Oh, geez.
He was possibly referring to the murder of Sergeant Richard Raytich a week earlier on June 19th.
Raytich.
At 5:25 a.m., Richard was writing a parking ticket in his squad car when someone shot him in the head with a .38 caliber pistol.
Oh, man.
He died 15 hours later. The San Francisco PD denies the Zodiac was involved, but that remains unsolved.
Huh.
Included with the letter was a Phillips 66 road map of the San Francisco Bay Area. On the image of Mount Diablo, the Zodiac had drawn a cross circle similar to the one he had included his
so
little
he's basically
Zodiac
telling
symbol.
you this is where I am.
The letter also included a 32-letter cipher that the killer claimed would, in conjunction with the code, lead to the location of a bomb he had buried and set to go off in the fall. The cipher was never decoded, and the alleged bomb was never located.
Wow.
So. Then in a letter to the Chronicle on July 24th, 1970...
the same day that the president of the Continental Telephone Company, now Contel, and at the time the third largest telephone corporation in the U.S., was murdered by a car bomb in the St. Louis suburb of Clayton, Missouri.
Whoa.
That same day?
Yes.
That's where we got married, Clayton, Missouri, right?
Yeah.
Boom. Marriage. Clayton.
No, St. Louis City.
No, Clayton.
The Tower Grove Park's in St. Louis City.
No, it was Clayton is where we got. That's where our reception was.
That's
Clayton.
where the reception was. That's right.
Boom. We
So
got
anyway,
married there while
he
that guy
took-
was getting killed.
On that day, he took credit for Kathleen John's abduction 4 months earlier. So
Okay.
he said that was him.
Ah.
Then 2 days later in a letter, he paraphrased a song from the Mikado, added his own lyrics about making a little list of the ways he planned to torture his slaves in paradise. The letter was signed with a large exaggerated cross circle symbol and a new score. And it had like the cross circle symbol, and then it said 13, and then it said San Francisco PD 0.
You know what somebody should have explained to this guy is that, hey, if it's paradise, why it's not paradise for the slaves? Nobody's a slave in
Right.
paradise. Idiot.
Then on October 7th, 1970,
Oh, the same day that Dan August was on TV, action detective, action buddy show starring Burt Reynolds and Norman fucking Fell. Norman
Whoa.
Fell and Burt Reynolds were buddy action.
my God.
Detective August works the crime beat in his hometown, Santa Luisa, California, working with and against people with whom he grew up.
too bad he couldn't find the Zodiac killer.
Burt Reynolds and Norman fucking Fell action
All
buddy
right, so
show.
the Chronicle received a 3x5-inch card signed by the Zodiac with his little symbol and a small cross that was reportedly drawn with blood. The card's message was formed by pasting words and letters from an edition of the Chronicle, like a ransom note,
Yeah.
and 13 holes were punched across the card. The inspectors agreed it was highly probable it came from the Zodiac, that it was real.
Yeah.
Then on October 27th, 1970...
Oh, the same day that the ABC movie of the week was The House That Would Not Die.
Ooh.
A haunted house in Amish country movie starring Barbara Stanwyck.
Yes.
Same day that was
sounds
on?
fabulous.
Yeah.
The Chronicle reporter Paul Avery, who had been covering the Zodiac case,
Yeah.
received a Halloween card signed with the letter Z and
Nice.
the Zodiac's cross circle symbol.
Oh, not so nice.
Handwritten on the card was the note, "Peekaboo, you are doomed." The threat was taken seriously and received a front-page story in the Chronicle.
Uh-oh.
Soon after receiving
I'd be
this
scared
letter,
if I was that guy.
Avery received an anonymous letter alerting him to the similarities between the Zodiac's activities and the unsolved murder of Sherry Jo Bates, which had occurred 4 years earlier at the City College in Riverside,
Huh.
more than 400 miles south of San Francisco. And he reported his findings in the Chronicle. So it's just another murder that they are attaching to
another
the
murder.
Zodiac.
They're all just murders. Just another murder.
Then in March, there was a postcard sent to Avery that claimed responsibility for the disappearance of Donna Lass on September 6th, 1970.
So he just keeps murdering people, like all these murders, and nobody's catching him at all.
Right. She was a nurse who disappeared, and her landlord and boss both got phone calls from some man who claimed that she had left town due to a family emergency.
Oh.
She was never found.
Huh.
Then in 1972, a reporter made a connection between the Zodiac and the 1963 murders of a young couple in Santa Barbara.
Way back.
The couple had been shot dead on a beach after skipping school for senior ditch day.
Oh,
Their bodies were placed in a small shack that the killer had attempted to burn to the ground.
Wow.
That's where they were found. So after that card, the Zodiac remained silent for nearly 3 years.
Huh.
The Chronicle then received a letter from the Zodiac postmarked January 29th, 1974.
Oh, the same day that on Maude, Arthur and Vivian are getting married, and Maude convinces them to have their wedding in Vermont, and they all make the train trip, but a blizzard interrupts the trip and causes tempers to flare, and then B. Arthur shows her taint.
No.
It was the first time a taint was shown on regular TV.
In this letter, he praised The Exorcist as the best satirical comedy I've ever seen. It included a snippet of verse from The Mikado again, and it concluded the letter with a new score. It said, me, 37, San Francisco PD, 0.
37's a lot higher now.
Yeah. So
he's been killed. There's
that's
probably
supposedly.
Tons of unsolved murders that
supposedly.
nobody...
So, in April 2004, the San Francisco PD marked the case inactive, citing caseload pressure and resource demands, and they closed it.
Sheesh.
However, they did reopen the case sometime before March 2007. In May 2018, the police department announced their intention to attempt to collect the Zodiac killer's DNA from the back of stamps he used during his correspondence.
Really? The same month that My Strange Addiction was on, about a lady eating a couch?
Probably.
That's where television is going.
The analysis by a private laboratory is expected to utilize an advanced new technique that is able to separate DNA from the glue present on the back of a stamp.
Ooh.
It is hoped the Zodiac killer may be caught in a similar fashion to the Golden State Killer.
Yeah, 23andMe, right?
Yep. In May 2018, a Vallejo police detective said that results were expected in several weeks, but to date, no results have been reported.
Really?
That's always, it seems like it takes forever on those things.
Damn it. I think we're going to hear any minute now.
And
then everyone will rush to listen to this episode of American Timelines by History for Jacks.
There's one main suspect.
Yeah.
There's an author, Robert Graysmith, wrote a book called Zodiac, and that's what the movie. Remember, who's in that movie? Not Joaquin Phoenix, but
no, I think it was Rodney Dangerfield.
No, it was the brother.
Jake
Gyllenhaal.
Jim Varney.
Jake Gyllenhaal, I think, is the guy in it.
Oh, you're thinking of Maggie Gyllenhaal. You're thinking of Brokeback Mountain.
No. So anyway, in the book Zodiac, he says that Arthur Lee Allen was a potential suspect, and he based it on circumstantial evidence. Allen had been interviewed by police from the early days of the Zodiac investigations and was the subject of several search warrants over a 20-year period.
Oh, so the people were already after him.
In 2007, Graysmith noted that several police detectives described Allen as the most likely suspect. However, in 2010, police stated that all the evidence against Allen ultimately turned out to be negative. So the other little tidbits, in 2007, there was a man named Dennis Kaufman claimed that his stepfather, Jack Terrence, was the Zodiac.
Really?
He turned several items over to the FBI, including a hood similar to that one worn by the Zodiac.
What?
According to news sources, DNA analysis conducted by the FBI on the items was deemed inconclusive in 2010.
It was his stepfather?
Mm-hmm.
This guy doesn't sound like he could be married to anybody.
No. In 2009, a former lawyer named Robert Tarbox, who coincidentally in August of 1975 was disbarred.
Robert Tarbox, y'all.
He said that in early 1970s, a merchant mariner walked into his office and confessed to him that he was the Zodiac killer.
Ooh.
The man, who the guy Tarbox says he will not say his name because of attorney-client privilege, described his crimes briefly but persuasively enough to convince him. The man said he was trying to stop himself from his opportunistic murder spree, but never returned to see Tarbox again. Tarbox took out a full-page ad in the Vallejo Times-Herald that he claimed would clear the name of Arthur Lee Allen as a killer, which was his only reason for revealing the story 30 years after the fact.
Okay.
And then in February 2014, it was reported that a man named Louis Joseph Myers had confessed to a friend in 2001 that he was the Zodiac killer after learning that he was dying from cirrhosis of the liver. He requested that his friend Randy Kenny go to the police upon his death. Myers died in 2002, but Kenny allegedly had difficulties getting officers to cooperate and take his claims seriously.
What was Myers' first name?
Louis Joseph Myers.
Louis Joseph, okay.
There are several potential connections between Myers and the Zodiac case. Myers attended the same high schools as victims David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, and allegedly worked in the same restaurant as victim Darlene Ferrin. Myers also had access to the same sort of military boot whose print was found at the Lake Berryessa crime scene.
Okay.
Furthermore, during the 1971 to 73 period, when no Zodiac letters were received, Myers was stationed overseas with the military. Kenny says that Myers confessed he targeted couples because he had had a bad breakup with a girlfriend.
I think you think that's that guy?
I don't know. Well, officers associated with the case are skeptical, but they do think it's credible enough to investigate.
Huh.
And then there's also been rumors that Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, he has been thought of as the Zodiac killer.
Yeah, I guess he was old enough.
And he was around that area.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Anyway, that's the story of the Zodiac killer.
Wow, I hope we find out who did it soon. That's exciting.
I hope we do. I hope maybe the DNA thing.
Maybe you need to spend more time researching and finding
who the Zodiac killer was.
Yeah, I think that guy does sound like the most plausible. We got a whole month to go, so I'm going to try to speed through it as much as we can.
All right.
And maybe this will be a long episode. I'm going to skip a few
anything boring,
things.
please.
Yes. Tuesday, July 8th, 1969, American nerve gas weapons were accidentally released from their containers by a crew of U.S. Air Force members at the Kadena Air Base on the Japanese island of Okinawa. The mishap, which injured 23 troops and a civilian, involved either VX or sarin.
Ooh.
Both nerve agents.
Yeah.
Henry Kissinger, the national security advisor to U.S. President Nixon, later blamed the incident on an unidentified Air Force major whose aesthetic sense exceeded his judgment.
Do you remember that cult in Japan that released the sarin gas on the train?
Yeah.
Aum Shinrikyo?
Yeah.
Ugh.
We talked about that, right?
I think
you
might
made me
have.
watch a show about that.
It's sarin gas, I guess, is a horrible way to die.
Ugh. Anyway, that same day, Arthur Nathaniel Aiken and Antonio Nathaniel Wheat were both spared execution only 3 days before they were scheduled to be hanged at the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla.
Wow.
The double hanging had been set for 12:01 in the morning of Friday, July 11th, and the two former airmen would have been the first prisoners to be put to death since Louis Monge in 1967. Warden Robert Ray told reporters that Wheat and Aiken would be given the option to decide which one would be executed first. And if they're unable to agree on the sequence, Ray would flip a coin. Aiken was granted a stay of execution by U.S. Supreme Court Justice William O. Douglas, who happened to be vacationing at his summer home in Goose Prairie, Washington, less than 72 hours before the trip to the gallows. Wheat had been given a temporary reprieve by Potter Stewart the day before. The U.S. Supreme Court would void all pending death sentences in 1972. And the two inmates convicted of a triple homicide would serve consecutive life sentences instead. I can't believe they were still hanging people in the 60s.
I know. That seems so archaic, doesn't it?
I know, it's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Then Wednesday, July 9th, Hall of Fame rock group Vanilla Fudge arrived 4 hours late for their concert at the Blossom Amphitheater at Northampton Township outside of Cleveland after driving to Northampton, Ohio, population 489 and located 200 miles away. Vocalist Mark Stein told a reporter later, "You understand, man, that the promoter kept telling our agent about Blossom Center in Northampton Township. Only we were up in Montreal looking at a map to find the place, and sure enough, there's the town Northampton, near Dayton somewhere. We figured that's a weird place for a concert, but if that's where people's heads are at in Ohio, fine, that's where we'll wail."
Okay.
The sellout crowd remained until the band began playing at 12:30 in the morning, 4 hours late.
Oh.
Would you stay at 7:30
No.
concert? Didn't start till midnight?
Nope.
What if it was white or Vanilla Fudge? White Fudge.
What?
Vanilla Fudge is the name of the band. You know who they are?
No.
They played like psychedelic, long, drawn out versions, covers.
Oh, no, I definitely wouldn't then.
All right, I'm gonna skip this one. That was a good one, but it's too long. and I'll just try to make this one quick. On July 10th, 1969, they found this guy who was Donald Crowhurst. They found his boat. Like, there was a big race to sail around the world.
Yeah.
And all these different people were trying to do it, and Donald Crowhurst was like the odds-on favorite. But they found his boat and all of his stuff, and he was nowhere to be found, and his emergency boats were still there, so they don't know what happened to him. They think he killed himself, and the guy who won ended up donating his prize money to that guy's family.
Oh, my God.
What was that?
Yeah.
And then Friday, July 11th, 1969, David Bowie's song Space Oddity about a fictional astronaut, Major Tom, was released by Philips Records in conjunction with the expected launch of the Apollo 11 mission to the Mars. The song had been recorded 3 weeks earlier.
Mission to the Mars?
Mission... Did I say mission to the Mars?
Mm-hmm. That's
Mission
all right.
to the moon.
You said mission to the Mars, but that's okay.
Let me say it again. David Bowie's song Space Oddity about a fictional astronaut, Major Tom, was released by Philips Records in conjunction with the expected launch of the Apollo 11 mission to the moon. The song had been recorded 3 weeks earlier.
Okay, that's good timing.
That same day, the Sprague Electric Company delivered a 1.5-inch diameter silicon disc to NASA containing 73 messages of goodwill from the leaders of the world's nations to be flown and left on the moon. It had been inscribed microscopically. The medallion was placed on a package adhered to one of the sleeves of Buzz Aldrin's spacesuit and was almost forgotten until Aldrin was climbing back into the lunar module to depart on July 21st, and Neil Armstrong reminded him of that package, and Aldrin tossed it on the lunar surface as he walked up.
Oh, okay. So that's up there.
That's up there, laying there among all the other garbage. It's probably up there.
Yeah.
And then July 13th was a Sunday. The Soviet Union launched the unmanned lunar spacecraft Luna 15 3 days before the scheduled liftoff of the American Apollo 11 manned mission to the moon, with the objective of performing a sample return mission and bringing back the first lunar soil, a moon rock, ahead of the United States. So their plan was to get in there, since they weren't going to send a man. They were going to get in there, scoop up some moon dust, and come back and beat the Americans and have the first moon dust before the Americans. And so they launched that, and we'll get into what happens. And then Monday, July 14th, 1969, the modern U.S. war on drugs began as U.S. President Nixon sent a message to Congress calling for a comprehensive legislative... I can't even talk. The modern U.S. war on drugs began as Nixon sent a message to Congress calling for a comprehensive legislative proposal to control narcotics and to place in a single statute a revised and modern plan for control.
Now, you don't think for a minute that the war on drugs coinciding with the civil rights movement.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Of accident.
And we all know it's because of the civil rights movement. It's
they had to find a way to control people.
Yep, they had to find a way to keep slavery, and slavery was kept by putting black people in jail for stupid no reason.
They equate hippies with marijuana and black
you
people
lose
with
all,
heroin.
and you lose all your rights
Yep.
when you go to jail.
Yep.
And you are no longer. You are now
You're
a slave. You're a slave.
It says it in the Constitution that you can be a slave.
Yep. Watch. That's from, what's that?
13th.
The 13th. Watch that. Netflix. Wednesday, July 16th, 1969, Apollo 11 with Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins lifted off as scheduled from Cape Kennedy in Florida at 9:32 a.m. local time. Almost 12 minutes later, at 13:43 UTC, that's Universal Time, the ship entered Earth orbit, and after more than 2.5 hours, began translunar injection, departing Earth orbit on toward the moon at 16:22 Universal Time.
Spooky.
Getting in there, everybody's getting excited about it. I didn't realize how long it took to get up there. I didn't realize it took like 2.5 hours. And then Thursday, July 17th, the Soviet Union's unmanned lunar probe Luna 15 entered lunar orbit 2 days ahead of the manned Apollo American 11 mission. It's a race.
Yeah.
Friday, July 18th, 1969, U.S. President Nixon's speechwriter, William Safire, submitted a memo to White House Chief of Staff H.R. Haldeman titled, "In Event of Moon Disaster." Although several unmanned spacecraft had landed on the moon, none had ever departed the moon. So they
didn't know if they could get.
They were worried
back.
that they would just have to die on the moon.
Oh, my
just
God.
leave them on the moon forever.
Can you imagine? They'd have to just keep sending supplies up there until they died.
Well, I don't know what So they outlined a draft of prepared remarks for the president to deliver if the astronauts were unable to come back. And fortunately, he never had to read those remarks.
God, those astronauts were brave, thinking that, like, I'm sure they knew that. I'm sure they knew that there was a chance that they might have to stay there.
Oh, you know that? Yeah, it's crazy that they had the balls to do that. But fortunately, he never had to deliver the remarks, but they would have started with, "Fate has ordained that the men who went to the moon to explore in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace."
Ooh.
These brave men, saying their names, know that there is no hope for their recovery, but they also know that there is hope for mankind in their sacrifice. Wouldn't that be crazy to have sacrificed your life just to go, oh, we stepped on the moon, now we're dead forever.
Yep.
Yeah. And then Saturday, July 19th, 1969, police from Edgartown, Massachusetts came to the scene of an automobile accident on Chappaquiddick Island.
Mm-hmm.
Chappaquiddick Island. You know what about this?
Right. No.
And they found the body of 27-year-old secretary Mary Jo Kopechne inside an Olds 88 automobile that had fallen into a deep pond. Afterward, U.S. Senator Edward Teddy Kennedy reported that he had accidentally driven off the bridge 10 hours earlier and that he had escaped the car, leaving Miss Kopechne inside, left the scene, and gone back to his bedroom to sleep.
Yeah, I did hear that.
The senator's explanation for failing to report the event for 10 hours was that he was in shock.
He was probably hammered
too.
Yeah.
John Fairfax then became the first person to make a solo trip across an ocean in a rowboat, arriving at Hollywood Beach, Florida, 180 days after departing Las Palmas and the Canary Islands.
People going on both places that are terrifying
Isn't that
to me.
nuts?
The
ocean and the space.
Yeah.
His feat, though, was overshadowed by the first man landing on the moon the next day. As one newspaper editorial noted, on another day, John Fairfax might have made bigger headlines, but Mr. Fairfax happened to beach his rowboat on a Florida beach on a Saturday while the whole world had nothing on its mind except the moon.
Yep.
And
that's like when poor Farrah Fawcett died. She died like 2 days before Michael Jackson.
Oh, before Michael Jackson, so nobody even noticed that she died.
Nobody even cared.
And then at 1:27 p.m. in the United States, Apollo 11 completed the 6-minute lunar orbit insertion maneuver and began orbiting the moon in prep for the landing of the lunar module.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sunday, July 20th, 1969, was the moon landing.
Ooh.
And I'll try to go through some of this quickly. This is not a moon landing podcast.
No,
this
we don't need to.
Kind of a true
we don't need to
crime
get into the minutia.
But we can just talk about. I got the timeline. I got some little known facts about.
All right,
it.
let's get into it
quick. Okay, so from CNN.com, at 4:17 p.m. Eastern, the Eagle lands. At 4:18 p.m. That's the whole. That's the. So there's the module called the what was it called? I forgot. The Columbia is the module, and the Eagle detaches, and the Columbia like rotates around the moon while the Eagle lands. So, and I don't know if you know this, Michael Collins stayed on that, and only Buzz and Skip, Buzz and Neil landed. So the Eagle, that was the Eagle. The Eagle lands at 4:17 p.m., 4:18 p.m. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed, Armstrong reports. When the lunar module lands on the moon's surface at the Sea of Tranquility, it has less than 40 seconds of fuel left.
Oh, my God.
Crazy. 10:56 p.m. Eastern, so from 4 o'clock till almost 11.
They were on the moon?
Yep. Armstrong says it took until then for Armstrong to say, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," as he becomes the first human to set foot on the moon.
And he was supposed to say...
Now, it took him several minutes to climb down, and he said later that he intended to say, "one small step for a man," for the first words. And he actually says that's what he said, but nobody heard it, and they couldn't hear it. So... he said everybody else is a jerk except for him. And then 11:15 p.m., Buzz Aldrin joins Armstrong on the moon. The men read from a plaque signed by the 3 crew members and the president. Here, men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon. July 1969 A.D., we came in peace for all mankind. And then by 11:48 p.m. Eastern, President Nixon speaks to Armstrong and Aldrin via radio from the Oval Office. It certainly has to be the most historic telephone call ever made. They speak for 2 minutes, and the call is televised on both ends. Mm-hmm. Armstrong and Aldrin spent over 2 hours collecting moon rock samples and data and spend the night on board the Eagle. They spent the night
little
on
tiny
the moon.
American flags all over the moon.
I think they just put the one.
Yeah.
And but they spent the night on the moon.
Yeah, that's
they slept
weird.
there. And you can listen to the coverage and watch the coverage on YouTube. They have it all on YouTube, the whole thing. It's actually very I sometimes listen to it to go to sleep because it's so fucking boring. You'd think it'd be so exciting. It's the first time everybody's going on the moon, but it's like it just takes forever.
There's really nothing.
They're recording every second of here's what's going to happen, and everybody talks so slow, and then on the new anyway on the radios. At the time of the landing, the moon and the two astronauts were 244,391 miles from the Earth.
Wow.
Collins, alone in Columbia for 21 and a half hours, maintained an orbit ranging from 100 kilometers, 62 miles, to 76 miles. When he was on the far side of the 2,222 or 2,160 mile diameter moon, for reference, the Earth is 7,900 miles around. So he was at least 2,222 miles away from the nearest human being.
Wow. With
no radio contact with Earth or his crewmates.
That's spooky.
So he had to be fucking scared.
He was on the dark side of the moon.
He had Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
And he wrote all of Pink Floyd's albums.
Yep, he sure did.
And then July 21st, the Eagle departs from the moon to rendezvous with Columbia at 1:54 p.m.
And then it connects
And
together.
by 5:35 p.m. that same day, the Eagle docks with Columbia. After transferring moon rocks, data, and equipment, the Eagle is jettisoned, and the crew begins a flight back to Earth. July 22nd, Columbia reaches a trajectory toward Earth. July 24th, at 12:50 p.m., Columbia splashes down 8 days, 3 hours, and 18 minutes after liftoff. The astronauts return to Earth in the Pacific Ocean, about 900 miles from Hawaii, then go into quarantine aboard the USS Hornet. Mm-hmm. And they didn't release from quarantine until August 10th because they thought, who knows what diseases are on the moon.
That's true.
COVID was probably on the moon, and they probably brought it back, and it just now is coming out.
Now.
And then, according to History.com, a couple little-known facts. Moon dirt smells.
Oh.
That's a big thing that they said it's kind of smelled like stinking campfire. Like it's kind of moist and dusty, but then
like smoky sounds.
Yeah, like smoky type of thing. But once they get it back to Earth, or like fire dust, like ashes. But then they said, and the soil is really clingy and hard to brush off. So they had a lot of dirt that stuck to their thing. And inside the cabin, it began to emit an odor. But by the time they got it back to Earth and everything, the smell was gone.
Okay.
So it was like it had to be there, I guess.
It's just weird to be able to have dirt from another planet on you.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
nuts.
not another planet. It's a satellite. But to have, something that's not from Earth.
Oh, I forgot to mention real quick. I was building up to this, and I have it in here somewhere. But the Russian... While they were there, the Russian
cosmonaut.
No, there wasn't a person. It was just an empty vessel that was going to get the moon dust, crashed on the moon, and it broke, and they never got it back.
Oh.
And so the Soviets covered up their efforts to get to the moon first because they didn't want anybody to know that they failed.
Oh, okay.
So they tried to pretend that they weren't doing that.
Good thing it didn't crash into them while they were on the moon.
Yeah, I guess
it
must have been near them somewhere. Well, not that big of a planet, but... astronauts trained for microgravity by walking sideways when they were practicing. Civil rights activists got a front row seat to the Apollo 11 launch.
Oh, good.
Because, I don't know if you know this, but not everyone was gung-ho about the U.S. effort to land people on the moon. A few days before the scheduled launch of Apollo 11, this makes me think of the whole Gil Scott-Heron, Whitey on the moon.
Yeah.
I'm getting bit by a rat and Whitey's on the moon.
Yeah.
A group of activists led by civil rights leader Ralph Abernathy, arrived outside the gate of the Kennedy Space Center. They brought with them 2 mules and a wooden wagon to illustrate the contrast between the gleaming white Saturn V rocket and families who couldn't afford food or a decent place to live.
That's right.
Amid the heady build-up to the launch, the NASA administrator, Thomas Paine, the guy who was talking about Mars in the 80s, came out to talk to the protesters face-to-face. After Payne and Abernathy talked for a while under lightly falling rain, Payne said he hoped Abernathy would hitch his wagon star a rocket, using the space program as a spur to the nation to tackle problems boldly in other areas, and using NASA's space successes as a yardstick by which progress in other areas should be measured. Payne then arranged to have members of the group attend the next day's launch from a VIP viewing area. Abernathy prayed for the safety of the astronauts and said he was as proud as anyone at that accomplishment. So he kind of invited them in and let's talk. And so, you understand why civil rights leaders would protest the moon. I've always thought that too. It's like,
right. Why are we spending money on that?
And why can't we just use that money to help the poor? I don't get it.
Well, that's so many things.
Buzz Aldrin also took Holy Communion on the moon. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I already talked about scientists worried about space germs. Nixon was worried it would fail, and I think that those are all the little tidbits that I had.
Pretty cool.
Yep. And let's see, that same day on July 20th, the Royal Rainmaking Project of Thailand was carried out for the first time as an airplane attempted cloud seeding with dry ice over the Khao Yai National Park in a drought-stricken area with some success in making rainfall, although not over the targeted area. And then couple other things. In sports, in 1963, San Francisco Giants manager Alvin Dark joked, "They'll put a man on the moon before pitcher Gaylord Perry hits a home run." But on July 20th, 1969, less than an hour after Neil Armstrong's historic moonwalk, Perry hit his first career homer.
Oh, my gosh. That's funny.
Could that be? It must be in San Francisco if it was less than an hour after. If it was at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
8, 9 o'clock. Yeah, isn't that hilarious?
Yes.
We're going to end with Thursday, July 31st, 1969. TWA Flight 79 from Philadelphia to Los Angeles with 131 people on board was hijacked by a federal prisoner who was being transported by U.S. Marshal and by a prison guard who had been assigned to keep him in custody.
Oh.
The two federal employees had not been allowed to bring weapons aboard the Boeing 727, while the prisoner, Lester Ellsworth Perry, found a razor blade after being allowed to use the bathroom. After emerging from the bathroom, Perry seized a passing stewardess and held the razor to her neck while ordering the pilot to fly to Havana. Flight 79, which had been west of Tulsa, Oklahoma at the time, then banked south and landed at Havana. Perry, who was already serving a sentence for armed robbery in Connecticut, reportedly picked up a wrinkled brown bag from his seat before being greeted by two Cuban soldiers and departed. A few years later, Perry would be released to service on a Cuban merchant ship and eventually make his way back to the U.S. late 1980. On March 2nd, 1981, Perry, now 43, using the alias Russell E. Fair, would be arrested after attempting to steal a car from a parking lot in South Bend, Indiana.
Oh, my goodness. What a whirlwind.
It's a whirlwind story, and they should make a movie about that.
Yeah, really.
Anyway.
And that's it.
Yeah. I was on a plane one time where a buddy of mine that was on the flight had to have a seat moved because there was a prisoner on board.
Really?
Sitting next to him, so
I
they
didn't know that.
moved him. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I never heard of that happening. Anyway, that's the end of July. That was a lot of stuff. We got the Zodiac Killer and the moon landing. That's a big episode. It's a long episode. We apologize, but we weren't here last week.
That's right.
We love you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And
send us money.
Next week's going to be a special bonus. It's not really a bonus since we're not doing like 2 or anything. It's a special episode. We're going to cover Manson in all his glory.
Charlie Manson. That was August?
August, yep.
Jeez, there's so much in 1969.
There really is. It was crazy.
Awesome.
So it's time to get out of here, Chuck Berry.
Yeah, thank you for listening, everybody. I love you. We both love you. Yep. Send us pudding. Send us a lot of pudding.
No, don't.
Mail it. Just mail it.
Tired of hearing about the 6 days. I said we're so tired of hearing about the 6 days. When you were all along the watchtower, kissing the sky, well, I was barely a glimmer in my young daddy's eye. I said that we're so tired of hearing about the 6 days. One more time, I said we're so tired of hearing about the 6 days. Well, make me shut my mouth now.
Alan asked you Alice versus Chelsea in town. Now you're stealing coke and money for the president's ball.
We're so Tired of hearing about the 60s.
American Timelines is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network, powered by Ortho Carolina. Find out more at queencitypodcastnetwork.com.
Thank you. Love you.